and welcome to our monthly Technocracy Roundtable. Joining me very shortly will be my knights in shining armor who are with me to fight against the technocracy, and we are going to be discussing the technocratic war on food tonight. So I have not caught all of the World Economic Forum and UN Davos symposiums that they've been doing, but I keep hearing that they have not been talking about eat the bugs. And don't be fooled that this is just because AI is taking center stage. And you will see through this discussion tonight. We'll get to some of them. I don't know how much. I've got quite a bit to cover, but I'm sure we'll touch on it at least a little bit. Some of these AI generated food companies, it's pretty crazy. Everything is really becoming completely synthetic. And there is a huge war on farming, on food, and of course, just on life, right? Because that is the true sustainability of life. There is even a company called Perfect Day, which we will get into. I'm going to play a video from that one because it's just too crazy. Anybody who remembers the book, Ira Levin's This Perfect Day, where there's that, supercomputer that controls the world and the whole world is one big family. It's essentially the noosphere, right? This hive mind. And of course, Chip discovers that, that everything's being controlled. Well, they have a company that's creating like this fermented fake food that's called Perfect Day. So you can't make this stuff up. But let's bring on our knights. But before we do, just a couple of housekeeping notes. We will be taking questions at the end, so just remember Q : and then put your question. That'll make it easier for us to go through and find the question. And we do this monthly. So it's usually the third week, but next month, I believe we'll confirm. But I believe it's going to be February 25th. So mark your calendars for that. We don't have the topic yet, but I'm sure by the end of this we'll come up with something. So let's bring on all of the knights.
Yeah, here we are.
Yes. How is everyone? I guess we don't really need introductions, but I'll let everybody go around just very quickly and give a brief intro for those who are new to this Technocracy Roundtable. Let's start with you, Patrick.
I'm Patrick Wood. I'm the editor-in-chief of Technocracy.news, and I've been the author du jour for at least 15 years about technocracy at this point. So here I am on the Technocracy Roundtable, and we have a great lineup for you today for sure.
Yes. And Craig, you?
Yeah, Craig Winkowitz. I've been involved in markets for, 35 years, probably something like that. And I actually was involved in a farming operation back in 2005, 2006, 2007. It was kind of a hedge fund. So this sort of kind of straddles between traditional farming and what we're going to talk about tonight in terms of that was our approach. We kind of treated it like a hedge fund. We did a like-kind exchange from some land that was in Montana, moved it to Nebraska where there was a lot of water, and sat on a bunch of aquifers. And then we got involved in it, and that was the time of the ethanol crunch. And so we actually ended up becoming transporters. We would transport our own fertilizer up from the Gulf because back then crude oil was really high in price, and ethanol was fertilizer was very high in price. So we actually became suppliers of fertilizer to the area, and then we got into technology quite a bit, where we actually put in crop circles and managed it with computerization, and we were also doing some raising cattle, which has become a very tough business, being a cattle rancher these days because it's been squeezed pretty hard. But we found a way to do it because we kind of vertically integrated everything. So we were doing some of this technology type of thing. We just didn't do the technocracy. We didn't have a bad angle on it. We were just trying to do farming in a different way. And so I do have a little bit of background on this. And I was the guy that was actually designing a lot of the models for this. So just a little bit of background on that. But most of my background's actually in trading financial markets and futures markets, commodities, and things like that.
I believe Patrick has a background in farming as well. So we've got two resident, and Aaron Day.
So I got involved in this 3 or 4 years ago. I started looking into central bank digital currencies and what those were all about. And because I was noticing that friends of mine were being targeted by the federal government who were promoting crypto as an alternative to central banks, not central bank digital currencies. And in the process of doing that, I wrote a book. And while I was doing the writing for the book, I ran into Patrick Wood's research and started to understand where CBDCs are as just a small part of this overall technocracy movement that is almost a century old. And so upon realizing that, I realized that the issues that we have now are not red versus blue or US versus China. It's really global technocracy and a battle for free will itself. So for the last 3 or 4 years, I've spent all of my time trying to educate people about technocracy. And my wife and I co-founded Daylight Freedom Foundation. And so we try to educate people and then also promote alternatives for people to exit the system and reclaim their sovereignty.
Awesome. Well, that's yeah. So we'll talk about the war on food tonight, and Patrick has sent a video that might be a good place to start because, in some ways, it's actually a little hopeful that people in Europe are really fighting back, and the farmers are definitely standing up. But I think a lot of people here in the United States have no clue. They don't know what's coming, and there's definitely a war on farming here, contrary to what a lot of people think. As a Patrick and I just wrote a book on how no, Trump is not the lion who is fighting the globalists. He's just creating the technate here, and he is definitely advancing the whole technocratic agenda. So I think it's really urgent that people here are aware of the agenda and that American farmers start standing up because there's a lot they can do. There was actually, and we can get into this too, there was a whole, I know I went on Craig's show, I guess it was almost 2 years ago now, talking about the NACs, the natural asset companies, but then tied to that was these climate smart commodity projects. And of course, in typical Trump fashion, he canceled the climate smart commodity projects, which was a major upheaval for all these farmers because they had to pivot so quickly. And then, of course, all these, they tried very quickly to meet all these standards. And then all these accounts were completely frozen. But as typical Trump, he just moved it to the private sector. So it's not canceled at all. This agenda is rolling on at lightning speed, Operation Warp Speed on steroids in every capacity. So they just rebrand, and I think that's also really important for people to understand. This is not, we don't now go and cheer and think that this is done. And this is we need to be vigilant more now than ever before. So maybe we'll start with playing this video, and we'll
Yes, indeed. Let me just
let Patrick talk.
give an intro.
Great.
This first video was filmed 1 month ago. And anybody who in Europe especially, they know all of the protests have been mounted for the last 5 years against the powers that be over there by the farmers in particular, driving their tractors and their harvesters and their livestock and so on to town to clog the streets and make their case because they're tired of being manipulated, yanked around, put out of business. Their land is being confiscated. I mean, all over the place. So we don't see these headlines in America, not often for sure, especially in the mainstream media. But I just want to show you this first video. It's just short, maybe 1.5 minutes long, and then we'll look at another one just yesterday. Let's play this.
Brussels or bust. These French farmers woke up long before dawn to make it to the de facto capital of the European Union. Sporting signs of protest on their tractors, thousands converged on Brussels, many of them from neighboring France.
Today, nothing much is working in agriculture. People have had it with the norms and restrictions. It's true, we're bringing a lot of determination to Brussels.
We went to Paris 2 years ago. We blocked the roads. We thought we'd been heard, but not at all. Some of us are discouraged, others are angry.
Met by police barricades, these agricultural workers have rolled into central Brussels for a multitude of reasons. First off, there's the Mercosur trade deal. With EU leaders meeting on it, it is in its final but increasingly tense phase of negotiations. Many farmers across EU nations fear that the free trade deal will give unfair advantages to South American countries.
It's mixed feelings, a combination of anger and fear with anxiety, because we have no long-term vision, or even a short-term one.
It's simple. Since 2024, we've been protesting, whether in France, Belgium, or other countries, and we haven't really made any significant progress. But today we would like to be heard.
For farmers protesting in Brussels, it's not just their struggling livelihoods, EU regulations, or the Mercosur trade deal. The culling of herds in France to stem outbreaks of lumpy skin disease among cattle has also spurred fury. Across the border in France, other blockades of roads have been happening for more than a week, namely in the southwest. The government has tried to quell the disruptions on highways by vowing to meet with farmer unions on Friday and by rolling out mass vaccination campaigns. But the ire against the government's handling of the disease, conjoined with struggling livelihoods and fears for their future under a South American trade deal, have brought anger to the streets of France. Ow.
Wow. Okay. This is 30 days ago. Now we see what happened yesterday, and I think this is Brussels as well, but maybe in France. But play this next clip. It's getting ugly.
Merci pour le bar.
Flash bombs, tear gas. They're pretty pissed. This is the day, today, what they were talking about, where the EU had to vote on this stupid trade deal that they were protesting in the first place. It would have driven them out of business, many of them. So they were desperate, absolutely desperate, to get this thing under control. And so they went en masse in multiple countries to lobby or protest the European Union to stop them. Well, all of a sudden, the message got through, apparently, because this was a chicken way out. But the council, who was voting on this, decided not to do that. Instead, they gave it over to the court to decide. So it's going to be at least a year at this point, maybe 2, before they get ultimate satisfaction. But at this point, the parliament decided to give the whole thing away, not take responsibility for it. They felt the pressure for sure. My guess is if they didn't do something, they were at risk of being completely overrun and run out of town, literally, by this farmer brigade. These tractors are huge, for one thing, and you don't want to mess with them. The farmers were so irate. What's going on in Europe that they have to do this kind of a protest to get any relief at all for their plight? Well, this is the heartbeat of technocracy. We're going to talk about other things that are related to it, but this is the heartbeat of technocracy, where the bureaucrats, the technocrats on high are deciding how our food is going to be grown and raised in the future. And it's totally opposite to what the farmers want to do, what they've been doing for centuries in Europe, and they've been feeding all their people all these years. No. Technocrats know better. They're going to tell you how to raise your crops, how to take care of your animals, etc. And it's driving Europe crazy, the farmers in Europe. This is what we're talking about now. This is a hard-hearted, mean-spirited battle against humanity to take our food away. This is the article that I was talking about right here. This is the headline. I think it says they gave it over. EU lawmakers deal blow to the Mercosur trade deal by referring it to the top court. What a bunch of chickens! That's all I can say. Just chickens. So at this point, the farmers are kind of happy, but not totally happy because they'll be back when
Oh,
2 years come by. They're going to be back on the street again, protesting again, and there'll probably be other things along the way that they have to protest as well. Other issues are on the table that we're not even discussing them right now. But all this to say, we're dealing with the most important topic in the universe at this point: how to supply food to the human race. And this is where we're going to pick up our conversation right now.
Yeah, and it's so crazy because if you think about Europe, I mean, I've been to Europe, and they really pride themselves on clean food. I mean, they have actually much more regulations and restrictions on what can be put into their food than we do here. I don't remember the exact number, but here we allow something like 1,800 endocrine disruptors in our food. In Europe, they allow 3. So we're talking about, a place where, it's when we went to Italy for our honeymoon, and when we were there, it's like the laws are just suggestions. Like like the traffic, it's just like a jungle law. People are on these tiny little roads. For anybody who hasn't been, it's like these tiny little windy roads, and whatever part of the road, whichever side, you can carve a space for yourself, and you just figure out how to navigate, and whoever survives survives. Hopefully you don't go off the cliff. They're actually really good drivers, but they say the stop sign, the traffic, it's all just suggestions. But when it comes to their food, they have inspectors constantly. The regulations are actually very strict, and they truly believe in things being organic. They don't use glyphosate. So all this just to say, this is like a complete 180 what they're doing. It's, for people who really do pride themselves on having things be nature grown. And, yeah, so but that is the direction where they wanna go. Everything is going to be completely synthetic. The, lab-grown meat are just the beginning of what, they wanna do. I don't know if anybody has anything they wanna comment on it before we open things up.
Well, I just wanted to throw in there that, this farmer, those protests that we saw, like Patrick said, this has been going on for quite some time. I mean, they've been
Yes.
grinding on these people for a long time. And France has been doing this, obviously, northern parts of Europe, different parts of Europe now, Belgium. I mean, it's been all over the place. I don't know if I've seen much in Spain. Have you, Patrick? I haven't seen much in southern Europe. Most of it's been northern Europe. Is that correct?
I think you're probably right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some, but not as much.
Yeah. And it really has been a grind on these farmers. And that's what we have to wonder when it comes to our country. And we don't see this going on per se. The farmers are under duress, though, in this country. They've been under duress for a long, long time. And somehow they tolerate it a little bit better. I don't know if it's because some of the infrastructure that was put in place, the ability to loan money to farmers and the way that it was structured early on, crop insurance and things like that. I don't know if it's part because the equipment and the ability to lease the land instead of farm it themselves. I don't know what the difference is, but we don't hear as much about this as I think what's going on in Europe, but it's there. And the question is, are we going to see this unfold the same way in the US as we are in Europe? And that's one of the big questions I have. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Patrick, in terms of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's unfolding right now. It's just not being talked about. And, the stories that are coming out from farmers around our country, they don't get any play at all on mainstream media, and most people in the alternative media, they don't cover it either because farming, yeah, it's like economics, who cares about the farmers? Well, there will be a time when the farmers get really sick and tired of this. They'll be squawking here. But we have a culture in our country that doesn't really support street protests. I'm afraid to say. I don't know if we're chicken or maybe we just don't want to show our face on the street. I don't know what it is,
Unless
but
you're Antifa, then it's fine.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly. So, going forward, we're going to see more of this pressure on the American farmer, and they're going out of business in droves right now across our country. It's been this year probably will bring a new record for farms closures in America. Family farms being tanked.
Yeah. So that graphic that was up there is kind of a pretty good overview of, I think, where things are going with the, technocratic, uh,
Mhm.
control over food. So they, a lot of, like I was saying, there were these climate smart commodity projects, and Trump did shut those down here in the United States. But really, the way everything is going is it's all about that. You can see this acronym in the middle. It's MRV, which is measurement, reporting, and verification. So this is how it all gets funneled into the corporation. And I think, I don't know how many years ago it was, but Walmart did something called like a Gigatron, and it was like a, yeah, I can pull that up, but it was essentially where the corporation sets the requirements so that and then everybody has to meet those metrics. So it's all about, right, that's how AI is going to be able to quantify everything. And this was actually the problem with the climate smart commodity projects initially, was that back in I think it was 2022 of September, they had presented like an ESG bill that these farmers had to meet. And the farmers didn't push back. As you said, Patrick, it's not like they stood up and did protest. But the reason why there was any kind of resistance was not because this is completely unconstitutional and it's going to completely, erode the entire farming industry. That wasn't why they stood up. They stood up because they had no way of meeting their ESG metrics. There was no way to quantify all of these various, carbon emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions the metrics that they had to meet. And so, don't worry, they had a solution, and that's where these climate smart commodity projects came into play. And they had all these companies like AgroSense, where they have all these meters that are measuring these greenhouse gas emissions. Yeah, this is the Gigatron with Walmart. And it's all about, the sustainability hub. But they implemented all of these various tools for them to measure. And so now, of course, they shut those down, but now it's going to be done through these corporations. And it is all about achieving this net zero. They keep using we see this over and over again, the rebranding that I was talking about, but they keep using the term regenerative. Regenerative, when you think about farmers, used to mean like holistic, maybe permaculture. It was a truly natural kind of a organic, like in the real sense of the word, organic process. But now it just means that, achieving it's all about carbon. It's if it's sustainable, that's the buzzword. So they move it to these metrics, MRV, measurement, reporting, verification. And then, of course, this is about making carbon a currency. And this, is the whole playbook of the technocrats to make energy credits, right? So the carbon currency. And then the next part of it is the procurement mandates, which is the supply chain standards, which is what Walmart was doing with their Gigatron access gates. And then, of course, how are they going to uh, do this? Because real farming is messy, and you have biology, and it's not always predictable. So they're going to have these industrial foods, which are literally AI created, and they're using precision fermentation, which is crazy. We can get into that in a little bit. That's part of what Perfect Day is doing. Cultivated meat, which I'm sure most people are familiar with, these lab grown meats, the Beyond Meat, and then low emission inputs is the other ones. And then from there, they had um, the regenerative mutation under there, carbon storage, carbon sequestration, and the various MRV targets. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Let's set the baseline.
Mhm.
All seeds at this point have been engineered, biologically, genetically engineered, mostly by Monsanto, but other minor companies as well. So the seed stock of the world that grows most of our crops like that are already modified in some way. And then we have all the animal life, like the chickens, the turkeys, the fish, the sheep. Not so much sheep, but maybe the cattle for sure. All the animals have been genetically modified at some point as well, So this is the baseline for where we're starting. There's been a huge program of genetic modification under their belt, and they have the intent to continue this genetic modification going forward to just literally change the nature of food itself. So we're going to talk about some advanced things, advanced scientific whatever going on, probably blow your mind, but this is the baseline, and everybody has experience, I'm sure, with GMO stuff in the store now. It's all over the place. GMO animals, the farm-raised fish, all of that stuff is genetically modified at this point. So, wow, we're on a wild ride.
Yes. I do have a 3-minute video on Project Gigaton if anybody wants. Do you want to play that? It's 3
Sure.
minutes. Okay. You don't have it? Okay.
Oh.
Let me see. Uh, is me. Are you able to play it? Okay. We'll keep going. But it was an enormous project. It started in 2017, and it's about reducing they want to cut or avoid 1 billion metric tons, a gigaton, that's what a gigaton is, of greenhouse gas emissions from its global global supply chain by 2030. Engaging suppliers, NGOs, stakeholders to improve sustainability across 6 areas: energy, waste, packaging, transportation, nature, and product use and design. The project successfully met its ambitious goal in early 2024, years ahead of schedule, by working with suppliers on practical solutions like energy efficiency, renewable energy, and waste reduction. So that was their goal, was to reach this 1 gigaton. I didn't even know that's what a gigaton is. It's a billion metric tons. So yeah, here's the 3-minute video. So, okay. Well, while they're playing, so it started in 2017. They invited a bunch of suppliers to join the sustainability effort. We went through the pillars, and so it's mostly done through the supply chain, which is just really interesting because that's what, I think that's what Trump's new initiative is going to be with this. I forgot what it's called. It's like PMS is the new name. Let me see if I can find it. It's their policy shift while we're working on getting that pulled up. Um,
Quite the acronym, right?
yeah, I know. I'm trying to find the acronym. It's the Climate Smart Commodity. It was a PCSC program, but now it's called the AMP program, which is Advancing Markets for Producers. This is how he's shifting it from the incentive for federal to private. The new program shifts primary focus from measuring greenhouse gas outcomes to maximizing direct payments to producers and reducing administrative burdens, is what they claim. So the direct federal climate link incentives have been curtailed. Funding for conservation regenerative practices continues through established long-standing programs such as Environmental Quality Incentives Program. EQUIP is the acronym, and Conservation Stewardship Program, CSP, including 700 million regenerative pilot program. This policy reorientation accompanied by a broader administrative changes, including reductions in the USDA scientific staff, which impact climate research capacity, and directive to de-emphasize quote-unquote climate change terminology on agency websites. And I think a lot of that, the downplaying of all this climate narrative, is because nothing about these data centers is green, quote unquote. Right, everything there that they need. I mean, wind and solar aren't going to power these data centers. So, and they're using. Elon Musk's Colossus here violated the Clean Air Act with his methane turbine. So yeah, I think that's part of what's going on with that narrative. But in response to shift the federal priorities, private sector entities, non-governmental organizations, and state-level programs are increasingly stepping in to support climate-aligned agriculture practices. So it's not coming from the government; it's coming now from the corporations and from the NGOs. So, all right. Well, I'm not sure if we have that video, but I guess we can move on. Uh,
Well, this program covers 5,900 suppliers and 75% of overall U.S. product sales. That's how massive Walmart is, and that's how
yeah.
massive the reach of this program is.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. Yeah, so I think that's I just the reason why I brought up that program is because I think that's really what this shift is gonna be. It's now gonna go to all these corporations who are going to set their metrics, and then they're gonna have the whole supply chain from there is gonna be in lockstep. So even though they may have canceled the program, they're actually in some ways it's an even bigger agenda because these corporations are supranational. So it's a global, consortium that's gonna be advancing it, no longer just the USDA. Um,
Well, and what are the cues that we're watching for? So obviously, Patrick, we ran those clips at the beginning. You see this stuff in Europe. I'm sure Europeans are more aware of their farming, I don't know, friction, right? I guess, for lack of better words, the farming friction going on in Europe. We don't see it as much, right? I don't know if it's because we're not like as, community, tight community, whatever it is. How does this roll out? What are the cues that we're looking for in the US to as we watch this? What do you think some of the, I mean, obviously, we've got so much technology going on in the background. It's going to be pushed upon us without even really it being explained to us. I think that's a big problem. The other part of it is this like a COVID type of a thing where we get some sort of a false flag event and they just roll it out lock, stop, and barrel, lock, stock, and barrel, or is it something that's a gradual progression that we're going to go into over, a 5 to 10 to 15-year window of time? What are the cues that people can watch for? I mean, what are we looking for? Do you guys have thoughts on that?
I do actually, because we're of our proximity to Mexico, to Central America and South America. We have kind of a built-in food chain at this point coming from the South. This has been developed over the years, probably 50 years at this point, and it's kind of snuck up on us because our grocery store shelves are always full of food, regardless of what's going on in the farmer market in America. So, we have avocados that are grown in uh, Mexico. We have beef being imported from Argentina, et cetera. And this gives a false sense of security to people in the grocery stores. That's not true in Europe. Europe cannot depend on any other uh, continent to give them food. So if their farmers run dry, guess what? They see it almost immediately on the shelves in the grocery store. We don't have that in America. And you might remember recently, also maybe a year ago, when the prices of avocados went through the roof all of a sudden because we don't have any avocados anymore in America. Um, people were paying just ridiculous prices even for one avocado. It's like, what's this crazy? What is this? Well, they're all grown in Mexico, basically. So, this is a false sense of security. This has been a plan, an intentional plan over the years to shift agricultural production away from the United States. We are not self-sufficient anymore in America. People don't see this. That they should. They should understand that we're dependent on all of our, well, not all of our food, obviously, but on a lot of our food, the things that we like to eat. And if somehow this gets disrupted, we're in big trouble.
Yep.
yeah.
When I watch, one of the things, I obviously we can get into the, the plant-based, side of agriculture.
It's not just plant-based. We'll play the video. It's they're literally lab creating proteins, fats, vitamins. I mean, we'll get into that. But it's not just plant. It's crazy.
And when we look at the cattle market, we look at really two places. We look at feeder cattle and we look at live cattle, right? Two different ways. You've got, calf,
Mhm.
growing operations. Basically, the way I always like to put it is you grow them up till they're a teenager, and then you hand them over and they're a teenager, and then you fatten them up, and then that's when they go to slaughter and so forth. And so there's really two different types of, do they grow them from babies up to teenagers, or do they get them as teenagers and fatten them up and send them to market? And both of those markets are sitting at highs. Feeder cattle sitting at all-time highs, live cattle sitting at all-time highs. And that puts pressure back on, and that opens up the door, right? Because it's expensive. It's an expensive product. We know that the cattle ranchers have been, squashed for decades, and then we know we have this kind of oligopoly that sits in the middle, and they're controlling the packing, and they're controlling the distribution. They're controlling a lot of the whole process. And then you have the end user, us, right, who's trying to buy this stuff. And it's at all-time high. So it opens the door to me for the technology to creep in through the back door and create these alternatives. And all of a sudden, then we don't have a choice. That's what I'm afraid of is this a progression that we're going to watch over time, or is this something where we sort of fall off a cliff? And it's like, well, sorry, guys, no more feeder cattle, no more live cattle. It's gone. And, it's going someplace else. And here's what you get, right? Here's your protein. Thoughts on that? Like how this unfolds, based off the other things we've watched, we've watched these, false flag events over time. And I'm just curious, how does this, because we know that this is coming, right? This is inevitable, that they're driving toward an endpoint, right? And so how does this roll out? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have some. It does look like they're, as Patrick was saying, everything is already genetically modified. Not everything, but almost everything. And most things have become already industrialized, right? People are used to, especially in this country, people are used to going into the stores and buying. Most of what people buy is not fresh produce. They're buying these packaged kinds of, it's synthetic. It's not real food. And so they're used to having everything very quick, instantly, and we see this every time there's some sort of. Right where I am, where we're being told that there's going to be a massive storm, and of course, it's been flooded all over the news, and so we went to the store last night, and already things are off the shelves. Right, so the shelves are empty. So people they have this sense that things are at their fingertips because they're so disconnected from our soil and from nature. So they have a sense that we can just go into a store and everything's going to be at our fingertips and everything's mass produced. Of course, what's mass produced is typically genetically modified, synthetic chemicals. It's not real, but people think they can get it instantly. But we're already starting to see a little foreshadowing. We saw it certainly 5 years ago. Whenever anything, any kind of crisis hits, whether manufactured or natural, the reality is things are not at our fingertips because it's all contingent upon the supply chain because it's not natural. People aren't going into their garden and just picking. Some people are, but most people are depending on the big box stores. And I think what they're doing, they fostered this dependency. They fostered this false sense of security, and they're incrementally shifting this. So we see constantly with the labels how things get shifted, right? The term organic. Organic only applies to like 90% of it has to be organic. So they get away with putting in all sorts of natural flavors. Is it really natural? And they constantly do this where they keep shifting what the regulation is and then what the labeling is. And the trend is constantly to increase the amount of synthetic that is allowed. At least that's what I'm seeing the trend to be. So I think that what we're going to see is that at some point there will be some sort of a shift where people are going to be either without, and their only choice is going to be this kind of completely synthetic manufactured, and I'll play the video from at least the perfect
Mm.
day because
Mm.
it's where what they're doing is not just a lot like Beyond Meat is meat, quote unquote, from plants, but they try to make it taste like beef or whatever it may be. what they're doing now, and these companies are actually not that new. They've been working on this for a very long time. So we talked, was it the last episode or the one before when we did the medical, we were talking about how they're collecting all this genomic data on us. Well, they're also collecting, our biome data, our biometric data, not just biometric, but biome. So there's a company called Biome, which is probably the most popular one. That's the most well known, where they actually take your RNA from your gut. And now they're trying to sync this up with something called uh, precision fermentation. And precision fermentation is where they take, like, typically when you think of fermentation, this is since the Stone Age, is a very natural process. You may have yeast, you add sugar to it, and, it morphs and it does its thing and it ferments. We have all these foods like cheese is fermented, kimchi, things we're very familiar with, kombucha, that's natural fermentation. What they are doing now is they're taking a molecule, and then it's something completely that it does not come from a cow. It does not come from the ground, and they're fermenting it, but they're fermenting it using code to make it, and they claim it's the same molecular structure as milk, but it never came from a cow. It is completely synthetic. And they're using AI to do it, because if they were to let science do its thing, then it would be, unpredictable. They need to be able to predict and to scale and control it. So that's really where they're going. And in terms of will it happen overnight or not, I think we're seeing it happen incrementally. That's typically what they do, with the genetic modification and with the regulations and how they keep shifting it. But they might, voice some sort of a crisis where then they overnight shift everything. I don't know.
To your point, Craig, about cattle prices and so on, you're absolutely right. The price of cattle and beef is going through the roof. I don't want anybody to think that the farmer's getting rich off this or the rancher's getting rich, because what's happened there's been a war on beef. If you never saw this coming, there's been an intentional war against beef in particular, to remove it as a source of protein everywhere in the world, but in America especially. So what's happened over the last several years, the herd of cattle in America has gone down, down, down. This is how the ranchers make their money. Down, down, down to right now. It's at a 45-year low. The cattle population in America at a 45-year low, and the beef, the cow herd that produces all of the young ones, right? It's dating back to before data was collected, starting in 1965. At this point, the calf herd has been decimated, and then all of a sudden, well, the farmers have to ranchers have to make do with the animals that they have. That they're back at 1970 levels at this point. They can't make any money at all. So all of a sudden, the price of beef goes through the roof, and here you go. The ranchers aren't making money at this point because they can't reproduce fast enough to build the herd up. That's a multi-year process to build a herd from 1 million to 2 million, or for instance. And so the ranchers are screaming bloody murder at this point. They're not getting the windfall of the beef prices. So we substitute other beef coming from Canada, Mexico, you name it, Argentina, Brazil, doesn't matter. And we have some sense of, I could get a steak still in the supermarket. Where was that steak made, my friend? It wasn't grown here, chances are. So I'm just saying, when you look at the metrics of what's going on, our beef industry is in shambles right now because of the high prices.
Yeah. When
So-
it should be. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to say one, because this is a recurring theme that keeps on coming up with what's happening politically, which is you have Maha going out and saying, "Oh, we're all going to have Whole Foods now, and we've inverted the food pyramid, and then you have Trump acting like he's this pro-populist, pro-farmer president. But in reality, his tariffs have absolutely destroyed farmers. Most of these bankruptcies that are happening right now are small farmers, and they're the ones that have been disproportionately impacted by this. And then when you actually dig into the subsidies, the $12 billion or whatever in farm subsidies, those have gone to large corporations as well. And then you have Trump supporting Bayer and for Roundup and Monsanto in the Supreme Court case. So, I don't put Trump in this 5D chess category. I put him more simply in the, if there's a crisis, he's going to side with the large corporations. But a lot of people continue to get fooled by the Maha. The Maha rhetoric is not policy. The Maha rhetoric, the opposite of what Maha says, is actually what is policy, and that has a big impact on the food supply.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I keep bringing up that RFK was a partner in Vantage Point Capital, which is, the exoteric messaging is all about like environmentalism and clean energy, but they have all of these partnerships and these ancillary projects that are all about emerging technologies and essentially biodigital conversions, biotech type of technology. So when he says that MABA, Make America Biotech Accelerate, is the huge component of MAHA, and he says that every American has to be equipped with a wearable by the end of 2026, I think that it's worth noting that he has a very strong financial investment in the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything, the Internet of Bodies, and this biodigital convergence agenda. I don't think you can separate the two. And the policy obviously is downstream from it. And I think that, again, to your point, Craig, I think part of what's going to happen is all of these regulatory infrastructures are shifting us towards this synthetic, agriculture, synthetic food agenda. Another one of them is it's the Science-Backed Targets Initiative. And this was 2022. And of course, again, it's because if everything has to be tracked and measurable, then the only way to do it is to make it synthetic. Make it biology doesn't work that way. So that's going to be, I think, part of it's going to be through regulation. So yeah.
Well, my big fear is it's like is that we talk about this and people may even get wind of, okay, we could have food shortages or look, I mean, meat prices people have to realize meat prices are high, especially if you're trying to buy clean meat, that's supposedly organic and so forth, And so, if you look at it, it should if you look at it from a business perspective, it should make sense. One of the big feedstocks for cattle is corn. And, you can use substitutes of wheat and soybeans and so forth, but typically corn, right? That's going to be a big feed product for cattle. And it's at low prices. Soybeans and corn and wheat are all at almost record low prices. And yet feeder cattle and live cattle is at record high prices. So you would think that the farmer would be making a fortune right now, like Patrick said, but they're not. And it's because of the people in the middle, right, that have learned how to package this stuff and, they take it to slaughter and package it up, and the way they ship it off to the stores and move it around. And the thing is, our DOJ, right, and USDA should be watching over this, and they should be stopping. There are acts in place. I mean, you have the Clayton Act, you have the, what is it? There's 3 or 4 acts in place that should break this apart, right? That's their job, and they're not doing it. And my fear is that if it just keeps going along, nobody does anything about it, right? We just keep watching this thing continue to progress. And, do we just progress ourselves right out of, like, where does it, people won't do anything unless they can get some sort of a prediction as to how this is going to unfold and what's their role in it. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to figure out how to get people, because I don't know if they believe it. I don't know if they believe what's going on in some senses.
Well, I think it's also when you're talking about these prices, it's also because of the subsidies, right? There was part of the Climate Smart Commodity Project was $90 million to the Iowa Soybean Corporation. It was $41 million to Farm Journal, which I could only imagine is for propaganda. I don't know what else they needed to subsidize Farm Journal for. But I think that, right, because when you bring up RFK Jr. and the whole SNAP program where he was talking about how they were going to ban soda. And of course, people were cheering this on. They're saying how, like, this is great. The underprivileged are now going to be steered towards healthier choices. But really, that was all about a technocratic blueprint to be able to monitor them. It wasn't about them getting healthier choices. And it just advances this narrative that somehow real food is somehow more expensive. It's not more expensive because it's actually more expensive. It's more expensive because all this fake stuff is being subsidized. I mean, it's not more expensive to take like a coconut and press it and make oil. Coconut's pretty abundant. It's the reason why canola oil is so much cheaper is because the government is subsidizing it. They're getting all these mega corporations are being incentivized to use that. It's not because it's actually cheaper. So I think that's a huge component in this price gouging that we can't ignore, is that it's because they're incentivizing the fake stuff. So, yeah, as far as how to get people to see what's going on, I don't know other than to show them where this is going. You know.
Well, and I have to add, just because this is my kind of hyper-focused lens, but we now
Yeah.
have the Clarity Act and the Digital Assets Bill that's coming through the Senate, and so what that means to me is, I mean, we're talking about agricultural products, which are commodities, and you're going to have enhanced power by the CFTC, which means now agriculture and the supply chain will be tokenized. And now you can add smart contracts. So for things like ESG, that makes it a lot easier to implement a technocratic agenda once things are centrally tokenized through this mechanism. And I won't go into all the detail now, but there's nothing good about the way that they're approaching it, because they are putting uh, the control into the hands of the large industry players and the revolving door from the CFTC and the SEC. And so I think that will play here. You don't see people talking about that side of it too much, but I think that is the key to the control system for all of this.
Yeah, I think that whole the EFTs, the SNAP, that was like a testing ground for it. It's because once it's tokenized, you can watch everything they do, and then of course you can also nudge them. Right, you can create like this cybernetic feedback loops where they get rewarded with for certain behaviors, and they get penalized for other behavior. And imagine you attach that to a wearable, for instance. Right? Oh, well, you got your 10 steps today. Okay, maybe we'll give you like a discount on a soda this week. I mean, I'm making up, ludicrous examples, but like I think that's where they're going with all of this, is that as long as they can track, and the whole ESG, people keep talking about the 17 sustainable goals, but and of course they're very relevant, but I think the whole social impact finance component of it really can't be ignored, because as Patrick has been screaming for the past several decades, it's about capturing all the resources. How are they going to do that? They're going to do that by being able to track everything and incentivize people, and where you're just the human capital that's building the data pool for them. It's the datification of everything. And I don't think the food industry is any different.
Well,
Good old Howard Scott from 1930s. He was the head of the technocracy movement at Columbia University. He wasn't a professor. They kicked him out for it, by the way, when they found he was a fraud. But nevertheless, he was a guy that incorporated Technocracy Inc. that went on to raise a ruckus in Canada. And his attitude about agriculture, this has been around for almost 100 years now. Listen to his rationale. Howard Scott described agriculture as a problem of designing large-scale, high-speed, mechanistic food production far beyond, quote, human toil and hand tools, arguing that technical organization, not labor value or politics, should govern farming. Then it goes on to say technocrats emphasized that in older agrarian societies, about 93% of total energy went into sustenance, while in modern and industrial North American only did about 7% versus 93%, using this to argue that the system now had more than enough capacity to feed the population if properly organized. See, the focus was on energy. Well, because we're wasting all this energy sustaining the farmers in the first place, that's stupid. Just take it all away and mechanize everything and put it all under the technocratic management philosophy.
Yeah.
And here we are today. How come we're talking about the same things 100 years later? Basically, it's the same thing today.
Yeah.
Efficiency. And, supranational or super, uh, uh, the organization coming from on high from people who never probably walked a farm in their life.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah,
I
there's
think
sorry.
Well,
Go
I
on.
think that makes the point, what Aaron said and what you're talking about, you guys are all talking about is, the people in this country are very price sensitive, right? We've been trained, $4.99, $9.99, right? Everybody's always looking for, so they don't really change behavior until the price changes, And so if we think about this in terms of the tokenization, you can price subsidize like Courtney's talking about for a while and keep things price, comfortable for people. They don't do anything. They don't make any change. Then in comes a tokenization. And all of a sudden, the whole ground has been shifted. The whole foundation underneath you has been shifted. And they have the full control mechanism that at some point you do go off that cliff and now you have no control because then they're going to sell you on the idea, like Elon Musk is trying to sell us on the idea of this is sort of falls into universal basic income. Don't worry, we're going to feed you, right? We're going to feed you. Don't worry. Not only that, we're going to feed you everything you want, right? We're not just going to give you universal basic income. We're going to give you high universal basic income. And this is another form of it, right? Food is another form of, being, receiving money or whatever it may be, right? So I think that's how this can work, right? Is, they ease us in with subsidies, kind of like Courtney's talking about. Then in comes a tokenization. They have full control of the mechanism and nobody really ever sees what's going on. And that's my big fear is, that people aren't going to take any action. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to find out, there's no change mechanism in place to stop this before it happens. And does that make sense? I just want to try to get that clear because we don't really see it going on. It's that slow creep, but underneath us that we just don't see happening. And that's always a concern to me is that everybody says, well, it hasn't affected me yet. It's been 100 years, Patrick. Nothing's changed in 100 years, but it is changing. That's our point here.
Well,
it's changing rapidly.
It's changing rapidly and people are being affected. I mean, we have a massive health crisis. And I can't, I don't think we should ignore what they're doing to our food supply as a component. I mean, right? Was it Hippocrates 2,000 years ago who said, let food be thy medicine? Well, if your food is all coming out of chemicals that are toxic, then how is that going to be healthy and healing? It's great that I think they always throw these bones, and the food pyramid is definitely a step in the right direction. I think it's better. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect. And on there, they actually talk about synthetic meats. They talk about like very hyper processed meats, which is, of course, where everything is going. So, they do, like you said, it's a slow creep. It's incrementalism. But I think that to say that we haven't been impacted by it. I mean, wasn't there the huge lawsuit with Monsanto? We know that glyphosate causes cancer. It's just they have a complete monopoly. And it's a monopoly not just on the products, but on the farm because you can't control the air. Like almost so much of I'm always looking for organic things. And most of the things from California are not organic. I mean, there's some. And I think it's actually because the air has been so polluted with glyphosate that they can't actually call it or they can't call it organic because the they share air with those crops. So but yeah, I just to say that we haven't been impacted by it. I mean, we absolutely have, and I don't know how they think. I don't think I'm being kind of facetious when I say this, but I was going to say like I don't know how they think that humans are going to survive on these completely synthetic foods that they're creating. But they're not really concerned about that because they're moving towards a transhuman and ultimately a post-human world. I mean, these tech bros do talk about post-humanism, and they talk about it as a positive thing. This is the next stage of evolution. Of course, they're going to be immortal and live forever. They're not going anywhere. They think they're going to be here for forever. But the rest of us, we're just going to merge with machines and then eventually cease to be, I guess. Which is they think better for the planet, I guess. So, but yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more consequences as they move into this. So
The post-human world will eat post-human food.
yeah.
What does that mean? Here we go.
Yeah, should we play this video on the perfect day? Because they
Yes.
don't say too much about about what they're actually doing, but if you know the story of this perfect day, it's almost like they took just a page out of that playbook. So, yeah, if we have that, we'll play this.
A day that begins like any other day can be the day that changes everything. The day when a glass of milk becomes a promise to the planet. A scoop of ice cream becomes a portal to a new way of thinking. This day is the start of a sea change. To change the way we live for the better. To create change that we can all see. We're rethinking our routines and redesigning our favorite foods by partnering with nature to shape a future we all need. It all starts with creating foods that make humankind more human and more kind. Because when simple choices alter our big picture, we see change in a new way. We see the possibility in everything. Today is the day we see everything fall into place. And a day like any other day becomes perfect. Perfect day, a kinder, greener way to make the foods we love.
I think I'm going to be sick.
Yeah. It's ProFerm. Yeah, so this is their, but it's this fermentation process where they say they started with whey protein. So that's and it was over a decade ago. So this isn't actually new. They've really, I don't want to say perfected, but it's quite refined, their whole process. They say ProFerm it's a superior whey protein that can deliver powerful benefits in many applications when used as an ingredient. Swap out your current whey protein for ProFerm or blend it in for superior functionality, nutrition, and sustainability. It's sustainably sourced, environmentally friendly, and it offers higher BCAAs than any other whey protein on the market. It has clean flavor in application and clear in solution. So, of course, this is all targeting the net zero agenda. And they're using precision fermentation to make a kinder, greener future a reality. But this is literally like out of a lab. And it's all using code in order to create these proteins. They're not just doing it with protein; they're doing it with vitamins, with fats. They're just trying to make from scratch, from a lab, using AI to me, yeah, it's Soylent Green. I mean, that's what they're literally just manufacturing. So there's no cows involved. There's nothing natural involved. They're literally just using AI and science to generate these foods that they claim are molecularly akin. But I don't know how I don't know what the ramifications of this will be. I mean, if people are actually eating this.
You have to figure it has to change our not genetic structure, but it has to be changing humanity somehow.
Yes.
We have the same thing in milk. Milk is being completely reconstructed in a laboratory. There's no animal protein at all. They're doing the same thing with beef or meat in general. with Beyond Meat, for instance, there's competitors as well.
Right.
This all grown in a laboratory where they're figuring on the screen using AI what the best way to make this stuff. And they once they got it perfected, for instance, in the case of milk, fake milk, they can produce this by the gajillion tons if they wanted to.
Yes.
Here, the poor cows out in the field, they're going to be really full. Of
I've
milk.
actually now I'm looking this up. I realize I've had some of this. I'm now looking at the products that this is in, and so I need to alert family members. And Eileen, so Nick's ice cream. It's the sugar-free ice cream. It has this in here. So I didn't actually realize all of the products that have this perfect day protein. So Brave Robot, Bored Cow, Strive Nutrition, Nick's. Yeah. All right. Well, this is alarming.
Yeah, well, and this is what I was saying about the how they do this incrementally. They just seep it in, and they do it under the banner. It's all through regulatory processes because they change what the regulatory protocols and requirements of certain labels and measurements that they and what they have standards that they have to meet. Right. So I gave the example of organic, and it shifts over time. And so it doesn't, or natural ingredients, whatever it is, they keep changing. I forgot because they keep changing so many of these, but like what it once was, and then they changed the term. And so it's like bioengineered. Doesn't mean that it means it's synthetic. And they have these different labels. And when you read it on your, whatever food packaging, I think this is part of how they do it. So they creep these things in slowly, and that's certainly not the only company. I mean, there's like Avicii, there's one out of Israel that's doing meat. There's a Arsenal BioYards, Cauldron is another really big one. They're doing, they call it hyper fermentation. But yeah, this is everywhere. And now, if you just think about what they're doing with these, like Biome Company, for instance, and this isn't to knock them because I'm sure there's some good that comes out of people knowing their, gut biome and being able to adapt their diets accordingly. I think that there can be a lot of good that can be, derived from that. However, imagine a world where you've got this completely this is one of the studies that I was looking at there, and this is that of the USDA monitoring the gut microbiome via AI and omics, and new approach to detect infection, AMR, and support novel therapeutics in a broiler precision farm. So just imagine where now they've detected these things about your, various RNA structures and DNA that is in, when they map your GI and they do your GI biome. And now they're going to come up with something that is precisely targeted for you, a diet that is precisely targeted for you. Of course, all under the auspices of, improving your health. When it's just like the injections, they're going to give you some sort of an mRNA shot that's tailored just for you, this precision AI medicine. Well, now they're going to do the same thing with precision AI farming and precision AI food, where you will have your own diet that is tailored to your gut biome or whatever testing they've done, except that it's all synthetic. It's made out of this precision fermented,
Well,
stuff.
this is a scary thought. They were able to get away with this because the USDA has a GRAS, generally recognized as safe pathway. So all they had to do was basically provide a self-affirmation versus a quote expert panel that they convened themselves. So that's how this kind of stuff gets into the food supply.
Yep.
This is insane.
It's through the regulatory infrastructure. Yep.
This has been the lie at the FDA for years and years and years. This goes back probably to the mid-90s at least, where
Back
they
to
start.
Rockefeller, right? I mean, isn't
Pardon?
this
Yep,
really
that's
just
right.
an advanced
Yeah,
Rockefeller
Rockefeller.
system, really?
Yep. So
Yep.
when they said, "Well, it's just like food," that's all it took at that point. It's just like the real thing. You'll see, it's just not substantially different. And they sold this as in my opinion, as a total con. to get their products to market, and nobody challenged it. Otherwise, nobody challenged it, and when all that stuff went, it was behind everybody's back. Put it that way. Nobody had a clue that that's what they did. That's how they passed it in the first place. So when people got sick, for instance, eating corn chips from Monsanto seed, everybody freaked out. What's this? How come, they said it's good as gold for just like the old corn chips we used to eat, but now I'm doubling over and falling on the ground on the ground and pooping all over the place. What's going on here? Well, the truth came out eventually, but now it's been hidden again. And you're right, just the same stuff going on at the FDA.
So Rockefeller they recently did a documentary on it, on this Food 2050. So I've been talking about something called Food Nerve. I think they've scrubbed it because I can't find it anywhere. And they seem to have done a rebrand, and they're just calling it like the Food Initiative 2050. And of course, when you look into this, it sounds great. Like they're talking about being able to feed everybody. This was the documentary on the 2050 agenda. They're talking about how they will be, able to create abundance and feed everyone. And they do use these terms like regenerative, which I really encourage people to look into what the UN means by regenerative. It is not permaculture. This is not, holistic farming. This is all about meeting net zero agenda. Um, so but the Food Nerve was actually all about synthetic food.
You,
And I'm sure that's what this Rockefeller initiative is. They've just rebranded it to make it more palatable because people have caught on.
there's a theme in the United Nations. There's people that actually believe this, that carbon dioxide is not needed for food.
It's literally the life molecule. Like anybody
It
who took
is.
third grade science, should know this.
This
Yeah.
this this is why they're pumping, they're sequestering CO2 out of the atmosphere, putting it in pipes, and and going underground with these pipes to bury it in another state, even in the ground. CO2. Thinking, what are you thinking here? We'll have to get rid of the CO2. We don't want that evil gas in the atmosphere. That's so crazy. This is a program of the United Nations in the first place. We have to get rid of CO2, the food of life for plants.
But it's perfectly fine for Elon to use methane turbines, for his Colossus. That's not a problem. So,
I know.
yeah, the hypocrisy is definitely alive and well. Uh,
Well,
yeah,
I wish you would do more at this point, because we need the methane to be broken down into CO2 eventually, and we need to get to enrich the air so crops can grow better than they do today.
yeah,
When I was a young guy in Northern California, that was a place where they invented the hothouse for these huge, 100-yard long dome-shaped buildings that had a transparent roof, and they could grow stuff in soil and water as well in these hot houses. The first thing they did, and they were huge. I remember it as a young guy, just absolutely amazed at these things. And the first thing they did when they were getting ready to plant, they had all the soil in there, and maybe some stuff they grew in the water, but nevertheless, they had the fertilizers machines set up to distribute the fertilizer to the plant and the water, et cetera. The first thing they did before they started growing was they put a CO2 concentrator at the head of that huge building, and they enriched the percentage of CO2 in the building, and all of a sudden, boom, tomatoes came out unbelievable. They were huge, and I remember seeing some of them. We never grew them that big in our own fields, but they could grow them because the CO2 was enriched, and nobody ever died. The people that tended those gardens never died. Nobody keeled over the gas killing him or something. It's crazy. But this shows you just how stupid people are today and disingenuous, especially at the United Nations. They don't have a clue what they're talking about. They really don't know that CO2 or carbon is the life molecule that makes life possible on planet Earth.
Yeah, I mean, do they really not know, or is it just like insane hypocrisy? I feel like they
I
have
think
to
they're
know.
just ripping
Everybody
us
who goes to
off.
Davos is uh they're they're certainly not, you know, they're not minimizing their greenhouse gas emissions. So
Well, I have video footage of Brian Moynihan, the CEO of Bank of America, and Larry Fink. Obviously, we know him, the head of BlackRock. But this was, probably a pre-COVID, I would say, right before COVID came along. And they were both saying that they thought we could run the U.S. balance sheet up to 70 trillion in debt with the idea that if we don't do it, no one else is going to clean the world's air up and all this other stuff. So it was clearly a chance to rip us off. I mean, it was clearly a chance, because I always like to show the assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity. So what they were going to do is leave us with all the liabilities, take all the owner's equity, right? And essentially leave us with all the debt and say, but it balances out. See, assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity. Now, I know that's not what they were going to say, but generally that's how they were going to sell it to us. They were going to rip us off with all this stuff and take all the money, take all the assets. Again, tokenization. It's the same thing they're doing right now. They're trying to steal everything. And they give us this scam, and they got to get a couple minions at the United Nations to run this little pet project for a couple $1 billion. Here, you guys go play around with these Tinker toys while we're running off with trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars over here. That's the way I look at it. That's how I think it goes on. I think they know that CO2, but I just think they know that there's $35 trillion sitting waiting in the wings if they can get, what's her name, the little girl that sails on the boat to the, what's her name?
Greta Thunberg.
Greta.
Thunberg, yeah.
They can get Greta to sell it, then it's good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people who work in the UN who may have bought the narrative hook, line, and sinker. But I agree with you. I think the Larry Finks of the world are fully aware that
You would have to think so. And we know Larry Fink, who's now the co-director of the World Economic Forum. I saw him on a video today talking to several people. And he's a member of the Trilateral Commission. He understands exactly what he's doing, and he's in charge of the CEO and chairman of BlackRock. So here's a guy who knows exactly what he's doing, and he's basically lying through his teeth when he says certain things. Some stuff I spotted when he spoke. Say you can't say that, Fink. There's no way, but he does anyway.
He's been pushing hard on the tokenization. He's been pushing very hard. He's written
exactly. He said everything that can be tokenized will be tokenized.
Yeah,
that's pretty blank. That's pretty broad. Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
They really want to create like a gamified society. I mean, I keep saying it, and when I use these terms, I know it sounds abstract, but this is actually what these, top scientists, these are the terms they're using. They're talking about socio-technical, cyber-physical, cybernetic organism. That is what they're talking about. Those are the terms. So socio-technical, this came out of Tavistock. But I mean, it's not that complicated. I mean, all the social media is socio-technical system. That's what it is, right? Cyber-physical, this is what the whole gaming world has primed us for. That was the intellectual preparation of the battlefield, where people are in these virtual reality kind of these, immersive experiences. That's what these video games have morphed into. And now we have these ARGs, alternate reality games. And I would argue that so much of what we're seeing in the media, certainly in the video game world, but really and social media is this alternate reality game. We are feeding the game, right? They collect all the data from us, and then it feeds the reality, and they blur the lines between what's real and what's not. And then, of course, the cybernetic organism, this is how this tokenization will operate. It will nudge us based on all the data that's been collected. And it's a feedback loop, back and forth between collecting the data from us and then nudging us and rewarding us for certain behaviors and penalizing us from others. Yeah, alternate reality game. I mean, this is really where we're moving towards. I think we're already in it. The transmedia storytelling was really what prepared us for this. It's where they have all these various intersections between film, the TV world, the video game world, the podcast, and all of this becomes this transmedia kind of storytelling system that we feed into in reality. We actually feed into this game. But this is where they want to go with everything, and I think it with the tokens, that's makes it a reality. That makes it so that it's very easy for them to do. I think what's going on now with the narrative, how everything is around AI. I do want to point out some of the things that I had in my notes about the food and AI, because I think so many people are being I don't know, maybe pacified or misled into thinking they've given up on the eat the bugs agenda because they're not bringing it up. And AI has gotten so much of the center stage at Davos, but that's only because AI will create the food. So, the eat the bugs, they don't need that narrative right now because AI is essentially what they need us to focus on supporting AI so they can create this synthetic food. So a couple of things so obviously the biological datification, which we talked about, this is where they need to, AI begins by converting living systems into data for genome sequencing, metabolics, metabolic mimicking, microbiome mapping, and then cell line characterization. So this is a lot of what companies like Biome are doing. Then they have the AI-assisted biological design. So, of course, as I said, biology is very messy and it's unpredictable, and you cannot scale it. It does what it's going to do. Sometimes farmers have a great year, and sometimes there's a drought, and it's not so great. This is part of the reality of nature. Um, but they don't have any respect for nature. So instead of slow trial and error, machine learning models are used to predict which genes produce desired proteins, fats, or flavors. And this accelerates the design of microbial strains for specific functions, such as producing dairy proteins or meat like hem molecules. The process optimization and control. In industrial settings like bioreactors, AI is used to control variables such as temperature, pH, and feed rates in real time. This optimizes yield, ensures consistency, detects contamination, and facilitates scaling from laboratory to global production, right? That's the whole agenda, is to make this globalized and global scale. AI-driven ingredient engineer. AI helps design functional components like texture agents, flavor molecule, and nutrient blends, which are then assembled to simulate whole foods. This modular approach decouples nutrition, taste, and function from traditional agricultural sources. I just wanted to go through some of that to make it kind of tangible for people how they're actually going about it. I can imagine, that this doesn't necessarily say that, but a world where they just take a pill and then it supposedly gives you all of your nutrients and you think you get the umami flavor of whatever, you've selected. Um, but yeah, I think that's really where this is headed. Artificial intelligence, guided strategies, yeah.
There's a program started at the UN called One Health.
Oh, yeah.
There's One Health websites, pages at least, on every major agencies in the country, in our country right now. You can go to the CDC and put in or search for One Health slash CDC. You pull the page up. This is a crazy idea for most people that said that basically they're saying the whole world is one huge ecosystem. And within the ecosystem of the world, we have other circles that represent the ecology and the environment, and then people somewhere, the humans are in a smaller circle, but they include humans into that whole mix within the animal kingdom, the ecosystems of the world as well. So the CDC website says this: One Health intersects with the food supply by treating human health, animal health, and environmental conditions in a single integrated system from farm to fork. That's his phrase. Especially for food safety, food security, and antimicrobial resistance control. This is the technocratic agenda on steroids to control the whole world as one system. So no wonder they want to create synthetic food at this point to make sure we don't get crosswise of anything in nature that would be bad for us. And they figure they can control that. Make good food. You eat our food, you won't get sick of whatever with bird flu or something like that, you know? This is total management of the planet Earth.
Yeah.
Really. One Health is the total planet in one view.
Yeah.
Well, I
Crazy.
think
And it is really, I mean, it is this perfect day. If you know that book, like that, it's really, and all of his, I don't want to say all, but a lot of his other books were made into movies. That one has not been made. And I think that they don't want to because it's like they're fine with doing all this weird kind of predictive programming, but that seems to be a little too on the nose for them. I'm really surprised Hollywood hasn't snatched that one up. It's I don't know. It's because they've taken a lot of his other books and made them into movies, but that one, I mean, and it's exactly what they're doing. I mean, it is the blueprint. I don't know. I mean, chicken egg. Who knows if he was fed the narrative? I don't know too much about his background, but yeah, but it is exactly what they're doing.
Do you remember the day that margarine came out? That was what, in the
Oh yeah,
60s, maybe I think it was in the 60s. Margarine, that was a horror that took the market by storm. And you might remember the ad that they posed that it was just as good as nature, and they
yep,
showed cows, whatever, and then Mother Nature shows up. And
yep.
do you remember that? Anybody remember that ad?
I don't
And
remember it, but I
well,
know that they were subsidized.
well,
It
I
was
know, but then Mother Nature shows up and says, "It's not nice to fool Mother Nature." And then zap, lightning came down and blew them all up, except for the margarine. The margarine survived.
And people still buy that narrative that somehow
Yes,
margarine is better for you than butter. I've had
exactly.
this argument with my own mother. I'm
Mhm.
like, it's completely synthetic. That it's not better for you. Yeah. But yeah, and it was subsidized by the sugar industry.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
well, it's like Velveeta cheese. You could double that with a light. You could use that for a light at night. It's
Well,
toxic.
the interesting thing is the original margarine actually had beef tallow. So this is a perfect example of a
Yeah. Of the
product
slow
that is.
creep.
Yeah,
Probably, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, and even tallow now, so there is this whole marketing shift where a lot of companies are starting to move over to tallow. But there's a one major supplier. This is also the problem. So you have companies like Cisco that are basically a monopoly on the entire restaurant and supply chain of the food industry. And so you've got tallow, which Armor is one of the. I don't really know of any other mass suppliers of tallow. I know there are some, more smaller companies that are using tallow that is actually grass fed, 100% and clean tallow. And we're hopefully going to get into that. We're doing the skincare tallow, which next month we will really launch. It's been quite a road to get there, but we should have that next month. But what they're doing with Armor is they have all of these various chemicals like a PEG and these other preservatives. So it's not all. The whole point of tallow is supposed to be a cleaner fat source for you to, cook in. But when you add all of these other chemicals, that you're just adding the toxins, and toxins are stored in fat. So you're not actually getting a healthier product. You're just getting a different branding, different marketing. But this is, again, I think part of that slow creep, right? Because it's tallow. Yeah. So it's got this TBHQ, which is the carcinogenic. Citric acid, which if it's truly from fruits, I doubt this one is. Some citric acid comes from mold. Malic acid and citric acid is like a fungus. Yeah, added to preserve freshness. And I don't know, I can't see the other ingredients on the screen, but yeah. So I think this is part of they add synthetic things to things, but they give you it's all done through marketing.
I wanna have a straw poll here for just a second. I'm looking at the YouTube live feed
Yeah.
in another window, and I wanna ask you please, just the 4 of you, us, how many people did you tell about this roundtable today? I'll confess, I had let's see, I distributed to, almost 50,000 people today.
Wow.
Notice of this webinar. How many? What? Tell me what you guys did. Do you have any idea, roughly, how much exposure you might have had? Like, add up your mailing list, your
Right.
Substack, your Twitter feed, right? I know all you have something.
Yeah. I mean, I put it on my socials, so I did it that
Okay.
way.
Okay.
So, Twitter's like 8,200 and yeah,
Okay. Okay.
but
My guess is we probably between all of us, we probably have 75,000 people that got tagged
mhm.
Yep.
to listen to this video, right?
Yep.
How come we have 177 people watching right now? What's going on here? Is
Okay.
YouTube throttling us? Do you think?
There.
I mean, I'm asking the question to our audience as well.
Yeah.
Where are the viewers at this point?
Right.
I know
This
I get no distribution at all on YouTube, but if I were streaming this live on X, that we would get more distribution, interestingly. But
That is interesting.
probably so, but nevertheless, what the YouTube is, of course, that's part of Google,
Yeah.
and my gut is we're being censored to death at this point. This is really, really sad. It tells you that they don't want our story and our information getting out to the American people.
Right.
So anybody that's watching this on the 176 or 7 or 8 or 8
Yeah.
180
Share
of
it.
you got listening online, spread this at every platform you can get your hands on at this point. And I don't care what it is, just blast it out
Yes.
so
And
people get it.
also and if you're not subscribed, do all of that just because it helps the algorithm. So, definitely share this out, hit the thumbs up, all of that helps. Comments, all of it does help boost it. I did recently, I actually didn't do it, so I haven't seen it, but my husband did a investigation, like Grok will let you see the internal algorithm now. And we did an investigation on whether or not you're being, shadow banned or censored. And it said that I was, and we asked, why? And it said because my topics on technocracy are very controversial. Yeah, big surprise. So, yeah,
I
they
guess
didn't like
free
that.
free speech isn't supposed to be controversial, I guess, right?
Yeah, well, it's freedom of speech, not reach. Remember? Yeah, he made
well,
that
I mean,
very clear.
well, related to that, and this is ironic, that the most viral post I've ever had got 5.5 million views, and it was analyzing the terms of service on X, which, by the way, they can sell your data, they can use it for their AI, they can give your information to government authorities. If you have a complaint, it goes to one town court in Texas, and the maximum damages you're entitled to it's like $100 or $200. It's horrendous what the terms are. So there is no freedom of reach at all, or excuse me, freedom of speech. But I mean, the freedom of reach thing is highly controlled.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just on X, it's just that Elon was actually pretty transparent about it. Um, but, it's everywhere. Yeah, the freedom of reach is and freedom of speech is definitely also being censored.
Under attack big time. Big time. By the way, I'm ramping up Citizens for Free Speech again.
Great.
We're going to launch an all-out defense on free speech in America. We have to do it, folks. And I'll tell you
Yes.
what, if we don't do it, we're all dead in the end. We won't have any voice at all. We'll
And
be
so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but speaking of, did you see the national securities, bill that he's basically censoring the First Amendment? They're censoring freedom
Yeah.
of speech
Yep.
in the bill.
Yep. Yep. You're right.
That it's a diametric
Yeah.
opposition to our First Amendment. This
Yes.
is our champion of freedom. Yeah.
And I read the document that seeded the WEF thing going on right now in Europe.
Yeah.
I searched that document for certain words.
Mhm.
One word came up that I was searching for in particular, misinformation and disinformation. It was always listed together, misinformation and disinformation. This document was only, I don't know how many pages long, maybe 50 pages long. That word misinformation appeared 69 times. You think they're concerned about misinformation? That was not a major theme. However, they didn't talk about it at the conference. I haven't heard it at this point. But 69 times and about 50 pages of text, give me a break. We're under big attack by these people at this point. And there's gonna be nowhere to run at this point if we don't get a handle on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't remember the exact, terminology, but it was, in the national security that they were talking about. It was, around AI that we had to censor certain types of
Yes.
speech, because of AI, which is incredibly concerning, especially as this AI advances and then starts to become recursive and build upon itself. Well, what speech is gonna and we already have this where bots are taking people down. I mean, that's what happens partially on these platforms where they have a transcript that automatically transcribes as it's being uploaded, and then the AI scrubs for certain keywords, and it can take you down instantly. And so, and that I think is only going to become incremental as
Well, and it can do that based on vocal patterns. So Mike Adams was telling me that his voice is actually tracked on YouTube. So not only is he not allowed on YouTube, but if his voice pops up, that the content is removed.
yeah, I
People
believe it.
I've had that reported about me as well. I'm sorry if I offended anybody or got them a strike on YouTube, but it's happened. I know it has,
Yeah.
and people have told me, "Yeah, we got taken down for that particular video that I was in."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend who, puts a 0 in my name when he has me on because, of the algorithm,
There you go.
so, yeah, it's definitely a real thing, and I think it's gonna get worse, and it's just it's astounding because that's our First Amendment. I mean, that's the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment is freedom of speech, and they're actively, uh, just obliterating it in front of us in real
But
time.
yes, and remember, it's not just freedom of speech. That's first part, but
Yeah.
freedom of the press,
Oh, yeah.
the freedom to protest, the freedom of religion as well.
Yeah.
There's a package behind it.
Oh, yeah.
Free speech leads the way, but all of these other things are just right behind it.
Oh, yeah, and Yuval Noah Harari was saying, and I caught some of his speech where he talked about how AI is gonna completely rewrite religion, because after all, the Old Testament is just a bunch of words. That's what he said. He said, "It's just a bunch of words," and what happens when you have a computer, an AI god per se, who knows the words better than human, and they can just rewrite the religion, where they're just gonna take over. That's what he said.
Well, and he also said free will is over, right, at the last World
Yeah,
Economic Forum.
Mhm.
So I think what they're doing is I think they were a little too bold. I think they knew that they had all this AI coming, and I think they got a little too bold, a little too out there. And this year they've renamed it. This year it's called a spirit of dialogue, right? That's the theme for the World Economic Forum, a spirit of dialogue. So I think what they're doing, this goes in with what you're talking about, them throttling us because they know that it can have an impact, and they actually probably saw more of an impact than they thought it could have. People, pushing back. So now what they're doing, I think they're dialing down the Yuval Noah Harari, getting rid of Klaus Schwab, bring in Larry Fink, pair it up with, the administration, make it look very business oriented and transactional because it's very transactional. What's going on this year at the World Economic Forum is very transactional. It's not about you don't see Benioff talking about agentic AI as much. They brought it up and he was like, he squelched that immediately. They've definitely cleaned up their message. And you can see them changing this. And I think this goes into what you're talking about with them, really trying to dial down the heat on them, and then get control of the outlets. Again, back to the misinformation, disinformation, and the reach that you guys are talking about. It's pretty clear. It's pretty clear when you look at what they've done at the World Economic Forum. They've rebranded themselves.
they have.
Yeah.
When they say so, what I got from Spirit of Dialogue, first of all, the dialogue is very interesting. Were you invited to be a part of this dialogue? I personally didn't get an invitation to this dialogue. Yeah, no, didn't think so. But I see it as the spirit is the generative function for the dialectic. And I think that's really what they're saying. This is all about creating synthesis, right? So they have to shift the narratives in order to create the synthesis, the new narrative, the new Alhaven, if you will, that is steering us towards technological singularity. I mean, that's really how I saw it. And it seemed pretty clear when you look at that title. The Spirit of Dialogue brings record numbers world leaders to Davos for World Economic Forum annual meeting. 2026. But yeah, it is, they very much have shifted it to transactional. They've shifted it to consensus, right? Everybody is in this together. Even Trump, who was supposed to be, ending globalism, he's now coming to to help steer the ship. I mean, that's really what it looks like to me. But yeah.
Well, they sure solved Greenland in a hurry, didn't they?
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, in 2
Yeah.
hours, they solved Greenland, in 2 hours, it looks like. He arrives, doesn't know what he's going to say, and then by noon, they've got Greenland resolved, so they're on a path, apparently.
Well,
a
and
little too quick. It's a little too efficient and too quick, right? Just a little too quick.
I think for certain we're going to see the outline of the North American technate fulfilled. They already have Venezuela, and Colombia is just next. Brazil should be sweating bullets right now, by the way. They're not part of the North American technate, but they should be sweating bullets. Cuba is sweating bullets right now as well.
Canada and Mexico are in the conversation too.
Exactly. So, you can see something's going on here, and this is a massive building of empire, in my opinion. And we haven't seen the last of it. Fortunately, if Canada really does join us, they have wonderful food supply in Canada.
Yeah.
Can feed all of us down here, and they really do. And so, we haven't tested them at all, but we get a lot of food from Canada already. But they have a huge beef market up there, and have beautiful crops, all sorts of crops that are just plentiful. So
And Mexico.
we can dream. Mexico as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, and with Greenland conversation, I don't think we can ignore the Praxis initiative,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
And Trump is already talking about it being a freedom city.
I know. This is so amazing. Just on that alone, the Praxis experiment.
Yeah.
Just on that alone, that would be enough for the technocrats to want to take over Greenland.
Yeah.
Because that's their spot.
Yeah.
Leave us alone. we like when they do sea steading
Yep.
to create a city in the sea, floating city. Well, what they're thinking is, well, just leave us alone. You can't touch us out here. They thought Greenland was a safe place. Who goes to Greenland, for Pete's sake? Nobody. It's 50,000 people there. So, so that would be enough for them to make sure that the United States stays in possession of Greenland.
Absolutely. And again, the language, the names, I mean, they are not subtle. What does praxis mean? I mean, think about like Marxism, right? They're doing the work for us. They're creating the narrative. They're the alignment, all of it. I mean, this is praxis for the network states. That's literally what it is. And they actually said it too. They said that in the Balaji Srinivasan sense of network state, that it's a digital nation. They said praxis is the blueprint for the true network state. Even more so than Prospera. And of course, Peter Thiel and Andreessen, all of those tech bros are invested in Praxis, and they're really excited about having their 1%, their tax exempt zones, and they're going to do all of their transhuman experiments like they are in Prospera. They're doing the same thing there too. And of course, they have all the resources there. So Greenland is actually very icy. Iceland is very green. I've been to Iceland. I have not been to Greenland, but Iceland's beautiful. And I'm sure Greenland is too. But I can imagine the water that they might need for all of these data centers. They have all that fresh water with their icy terrain. And of course, all the land. And then Venezuela has all the oil. So yeah, it does seem to be lining up just according to plan. So.
Yep. Well, Larry Fink has control of Mexico through Scheinbaum and all the bonds that they've issued down there. So, I mean, that's a whole financial thing. But, you haven't seen Trump put much pressure on Mexico, but that's because Fink pretty
He's
much has
mentioned it, though. He has mentioned it. He has mentioned it. Yeah.
He's mentioned it. He's mentioned it, but Fink's pretty much got that in the bag, I think. So, I think
so he doesn't need to.
Yeah.
He's they're very good. They're good buddies. They're good friends, Larry and Trump. So,
seems to be.
Yeah, really. Well, I don't know if we have anything else we want to address before we go to questions. I'll let if you do. Anybody want to add?
One of the things I wanted to throw in there is, this stuff gets very complicated. The whole technocracy behind this food stuff is very, it's very intense, and it can be very process and very computer and, data center driven. It's in very, you can't, when you're doing all these things we've been talking about tonight, like the fermentation and all these things, it's very precise, right? You have to keep limits. You have to monitor a lot of different things. And like Aaron and I have done on one of his shows, I know we talked about this pretty extensively one time about the difference between when you're looking at this AI right now and, the people who are using it are able to become so efficient, that it's not even like they're going down parallel roads, right? It's such a difference between your productivity levels versus people who aren't. And you can only imagine what they're doing with full access to these data centers and so forth. So the gap is getting so wide. And I think the same thing's happening on this food front. I just feel like this gap is getting so wide, just like all this technology is it's creating gaps that are so wide that you can't cross them. For instance, if you're a farmer and you're trying to get into farming, land is so expensive right now, to buy an acre of land. I mean, there are places in Ohio that are $30,000 an acre. So you have to be able to be so productive on that, or you just want to, again, that's a whole story unto itself. But the point is, if you're trying to enter into this business as a farmer, you've got the land cost, then you have the equipment cost. It's almost impossible to even enter into this industry. And so when you add the technology to it, that's the one side. The other side, it's getting so, like, if they start doing all these, the fermentation and the, all this stuff that we can talk about and go into great detail about, the gap between what we know and where this is going is so wide. And I just want to point that out. We see this, I think, on the digital front. We see this on the productivity front. We see this on the on the food front, and it's all being driven by these data centers in a sense, right? And who gets access to this processing power and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Aaron, because I know we did quite a bit on that one night.
We did. Actually, I just put in the notes. One of my favorite music videos is the song for that episode, which is about agriculture, and it talks about. It was really illuminating for me to see how much information is being tracked. What is getting beamed up to John Deere, the amount of debt that farmers are in terms of and who they owe it to and who they're controlled by, and the extent to which, if you want to get into farming, unless you're a big company getting a subsidy, there's no level playing field either. And so the amount of consolidations that has already happened and is continuing to happen is mind-boggling. So, yeah, I guess that's that, and that music video kind of sums up a lot of it. I was actually on it. Patrick asked, what did you do to promote this? And I put it out on my socials, and then I was on another podcast today, and I promoted it on that podcast, and they actually played this music video because that video kind of encapsulates, from the perspective of a family farmer, what's going on with technocracy and big ag and not a normal content for a song, but I think it is interesting to see it all laid out.
When you brought up consolidation's a key word there too, Aaron, and I think we just saw 2025 was, I think it was the best merger and acquisition year in 20 years, right? In 2025. And it was the second best merger and acquisition year on record, I think, So what we're seeing is this technology is also making this able to be just, the aggregation of assets and things, and just plugged in together, like it's tough when you have human beings and you have to work it out. Like you merge a couple farms together. It takes, some thought process. Well, this was Uncle Joe's farm. This was Uncle Bob's farm. And we got, how are we going to do this? And so it takes, this is just plug and play, right? The AI just comes in and plugs it together. So I think we're going to see a lot of merger and acquisition coming in 2026. The deck is, the backlog is there. The money's there, right? The money, the technology, the synergies are all there. And we're going to see the same thing happen in this farming industry. And we already have it. I mean, we already have it with JBS and Cargill. And, who are other ones? We've got, what are the four big ones? But anyway, the big meat packers. I mean, it's already consolidated. So we're going to see more and more of this. I think it's going to be big money, big technology, and it's going to be plugged in. And those are the things that I'm watching for, to see like how fast this is progressing. And it's very concerning how fast it looks like it is progressing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're muted, Patrick.
I just sent a link over in the chat, top 20 innovative synthetic biology companies in the U.S. It might just be interesting to show those people. You talked about a couple of them,
Yep.
But it might be instructive just to flash them on the screen for posterity and call them out.
Yeah, for sure.
You should see it in the chat.
While we're getting that up, I'll just say that I do think there's also just something for people to be on the lookout for. I do think I can foresee kind of like a problem reaction solution with this push for regenerative farming and for quote unquote organic. And we saw it with the Green Revolution in Africa, right, where they were encouraging a lot of this. Is this it or no? Okay. Where they were pushing for a lot of this more regenerative and organic kind of farming under the banner of being quote unquote green, and it failed epically. People were starving and they couldn't scale, and and I think that's part of the narrative is going to be that we need to have this synthetic because otherwise people will starve. We can't mass produce. We can't feed enough people. It'll be too expensive. So I can see where they're going to, problem reaction solution in that regard. And I think for people to understand that it's manufactured. A lot of this is through the subsidies. A lot of this is because there is an agenda. It's not because it's actually difficult. These farmers are being shut down when they practice actual, regenerative and organic practices because they can't meet these various requirements, to achieve the net zero goals. So I just wanted to point that out because I can kind of see that going that direction.
Yeah.
All right, top 20
Here we go.
innovative synthetic, yes, synthetic biology companies in the US. Yeah. All right. So we've got Ginkgo Bioworks.
That's a big one.
Yeah, headquartered in Boston, Massachusetts. So right there with Michael Dukakis and the Boston Global Forum that is partnering with the UN for the AI World Society, the Centennial Vision of the UN. But this was founded in 2008, so they've been there for a while. One of the most well-known in synthetic biology. They specialize in custom organism design and bioengineering. All right. So what else do we've got? We've got Mammoth Biosciences, founded in 2017 in Brisbane, California. And they're using CRISPR-based diagnostics and gene editing. Great. All right. And then we've got Tessera Therapeutics, and they're based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, 2018, and they're pioneering RNA-based gene writing. So unlike traditional gene editing technologies, gene writing enables precise DNA modifications without cutting, offering a safer and more targeted approach to genome engineering. Okay. Then we've got Asimov, and that's again Boston, Massachusetts.
Boston.
Yeah, 2017, and
You get an
focused.
idea here. What's going on
Yeah,
in
that is
Boston?
in Boston, and that is where Boston Global Forum is. So
Yeah.
interesting. Sherlock Biosciences, 2019, Watertown, Massachusetts. Okay, again, CRISPR-based molecular diagnostic. Interesting. So they're Sherlock Inspector. Okay. Pando Biosciences, founded in 2021 and based in San Francisco. All right. They integrate machine learning, so again, the AI, into synthetic biology to accelerate enzyme discovery and optimization. Wow. Volta Labs, founded in 2018. This is right around the time when they were doing all that Moderna experimentation, too. Cambridge,
What?
Massachusetts. Volta Lab developed a digital fluidics program that automates sample preparation for genomic and molecular biological applications. Okay. Synthago, founded in 2012, headquartered in Menlo Park, California, and they're the leader in genome engineering solutions. The company offers synthetic RNA, CRISPR reagents, and AI-driven bioinformatics tools, facilitating precise, scalable genome editing. Locus Biosciences, and this is based in Morrisville, North Carolina, founded in 2015, and they are at the forefront of CRISPR-based bacterial therapeutics. Okay, this is pretty concerning. Pivot Bio, founded in 2011, headquartered in Berkeley, California, and they're transforming agriculture through microbial nitrogen fixation. Geltor, founded in 2015, based in San Leandro, California, and they focus on animal-free protein. So, yeah, the animal-free protein production for use in cosmetic. So, this is something for people to know when they're in the grocery store. When they see animal-free, then you know this is what they're talking about. They're not talking about plant-based. They're talking about this is why the labeling is how they get away with so much of this. Nobody can keep up with all of it. And then climate smart is another one of their labels to be aware of. Perfect Day, we went through that quite extensively, and that's in 2014, and they're also in Berkeley, California, and they're pioneering, again, animal-free dairy products, precision fermentation. Arzetta, is founded in 2008, and it's based in Seattle, Washington, specializes in computational protein design and enzyme engineering. And of course, they're combining AI-driven modeling with synthetic biology. Caribou Biosciences, I feel like I've heard of them, in 2011, and based in Berkeley, California. Caribou Biosciences is a leader in CRISPR-based genome editing for therapeutics, precision gene editing platform advancing treatments for oncology, immune disorders, and applications in CAR T cell therapies, regenerative medicine, and rare genetic disease treatments. Twist Biosciences, based in South San Francisco, California, and founded in 2013, has become a major player in the DNA synthesis industry. They employ silicon-based DNA and synthetic processes, enabling scalable and cost-effective production of synthetic DNA. Lovely. Lygos, founded in 2010, based in Berkeley, California. They're engineers of microbial strains to produce bio-based specialty chemical as alternative to petroleum-based ingredients. Oh, so we should look out for that too, because that's going to be a big push. Right now, they're getting rid of seed oils, right? The petroleum-based oils. Not that all seed oils are, but some of them are. And they're going to introduce the microbial-based strains instead. Great. Zymochem. Zymochem, founded in 2017 and headquartered in San Leandro, California, focused on carbon-efficient biomanufacturing, and their engineered microbes prevent carbon loss during fermentation, enabling the production of bio-based materials, biodegradable plastics, and green chemicals. Inscripta. And Inscripta is founded in 2015, based in Boulder, Colorado. Inscripta develops next-gen genome editing technology that allows for precise and automated DNA modifications. Their ONCS that's trademarked, ONCS. Digital genome engineering platform enables researchers to edit microbial genomes at unprecedented scale, accelerating biomanufacturing and synthetic biology research. Checker Sport, and that's founded in 2016. Checker Spot, founded in 2016, headquartered in Alameda, California, applies synthetic biology materials science, developing bio-based materials for sports equipment, textiles, and personal care products. Oh, goody. So we're going to have to look out for that. And definitely they're going to target women with makeup and skincare. That's great. Ginkgo and Enzymes. This is a division of Ginkgo Bioworks. So they're very busy. Ginkgo Enzymes was launched to specialize custom enzyme discovery and development using AI-driven screening and synthetic biology. We're going to become cyborgs before we know it. All right, what else do we have? Yeah, so I guess that's it. Why synthetic biology companies? I can't read the rest of it, but yeah, so that's where we are at. So yeah, I guess so look out for those, and we'll have that there. That's a future resource, and yeah, but I think it's good for people to see, because those are some of because it's all done through this marketing, very clever marketing. So to be aware of some of the names to look out for, and some of the narratives and how it's going to be shifted.
I think we have a couple of questions.
Yeah, let's take them. All right. We'll go through. While we're looking for the questions, just a reminder: the next one will be February 25th, and we'll figure out what the topic for that is going to be. And let's see. So if you have questions, put in Q colon. All right. So I think the first question we have is, what do y'all see for the future of small local family farms selling food locally through farmer market and food shares? So I'll start with this. I keep pointing out that the second value of the UN values is that no one will be left behind. This is very much, if people are following the education, No Child Left Behind agenda, this is kind of similar. So I think I don't think they want to leave anybody behind in this agenda. So I don't want to discourage anybody who's a small farmer. I think if you have land and you farm, whether it's for yourself personally and your family, continue to do so and get very active locally in pushing back against this agenda in whatever way you possibly can. And certainly, if you're involved in your local farmers markets, in whatever local markets you are, get together with other farmers and push back. So I don't want to discourage anybody, but I do think that they intend to capture everybody if they can. I don't know if anybody else has other thoughts.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Well,
Yeah.
Aaron and I talked about this, so the way that they shut us down is, like we saw the trucker rally in Canada, pretty effective, got a stir. Trudeau steps in, and I forget her name too. The girl that negotiated, the lady that she has European ties, Nazi ties, but she was the one that was the finance person, shut down the banking system. So the key to this whole thing is, and on a cattle front, we were talking about this, putting together some sort of a connector between the end user who wants to buy good, meat that they know where it comes from, right? And then you have the cattle rancher, and then you have all the packers in between that are controlling everything else from, the whole thing, right? From taking the cattle, slaughtering it, killing it, slicing it up, packaging it. And they do it in a way, they put it in that plastic wrap, you know what I mean? And then they send it off so it's efficient and so forth. The key is, obviously, they've taken away a lot of the processors, in this whole thing because they control all the processing of it. But if you could, the biggest thing that I see as a problem out there is that as soon as you get any momentum going, they're going to find a way to shut you down through the banking system. So if you could find a way to do this on a private network, right, through something like build an entity on something that they can't track, like Zano or Freedom Dollar, and maybe Aaron wants to, I don't know if Aaron wants to add to this or not, but if we could do something like that, it makes it very hard for them to shut it down because you're using, truly private coins, private structure. And all you have to do is find a way to connect, the person who wants to buy good quality meat, have testimonials. Okay, I bought my meat from here. It was great. I love these guys. They're great. And then there you have the cattle rancher. And it's not an easy process and it's not an overnight process, but it is a process that will work. And I'm not sure that just buying local isn't enough because like we were talking about with avocados coming from Mexico, you really have to buy things from, we're in a system where it's hard to go back to just everything's local. I'm not saying it's possible, but it would be nice if we could find a way to create commerce on a way that they can't shut it down, like the trucker rally, that kind of stuff where they just shut your system down, and that's the biggest fear. You put all this effort into it, you get something going, and then they just kill it, so I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Aaron.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think this is the key is that they don't want anyone left behind. I mean, there's no competition. Theirs is a global system, and they're not doing this to be benevolent, but they truly are incompatible with other systems. This is why I've been advocating for creating parallel systems that can't be censored or stopped, which is what we've done with medical tourism. With OSR, this is another typical example. People can't afford healthcare here. You can actually save up to 80% outside of the country. But one of the issues with medical tourism is how do you pay? Because if you're going to spend, $10,000 on a hip replacement in Thailand, well, your credit card might be rejected or PayPal might be rejected, or there could be chargebacks, or you try to do a wire transfer. This is a choke point. So this is why it's critical to be able to have a medium of exchange that can't be censored because we know the technocrats want to censor everything. And so this could be applied to food. I mean, I gave a talk at Joel Salatin's Polyface Farms, and he's a big advocate for this type of thing, trying to create a marketplace. And the local part of it is great. I mean, to the extent you can buy local, but Polyface Farms, we buy from Polyface Farms in New Hampshire, and he's based in Virginia. There's no reason not to trade outside of your local area if you can. That makes a lot of this a lot more feasible because frankly, it's hard to get critical mass in a locality. There may be, we're all spread out, right? We are all in completely different parts of the United States. And so you could do a similar model with food where you could create a decentralized private marketplace and you could use a reputation management system. I mean, the problem is, as we've even discussed tonight, the FDA and the USDA do not certify quality. They are captured by the industry players. And then they have these little carve out rules, which, now where you can just say, well, yeah, we've self-identified that this is safe for consumption. And so now you get an exemption under the FDA saying that. Now people think it's safe, right? That's actually worse, is that these entities that claim to certify. So that's one of the big next areas, I think, after healthcare is food. And I think it can be done, and I think there'd be a lot of support for it. I think people like Joel Salatin and others would get behind it because they're already trying to do it. This would just make the process more efficient and would connect more buyers and sellers.
Yeah. Joel has made much of his business selling directly to consumers. This is a very smart thing because you cut down all these middlemen that want to be between you, the farmer, and the market. So anytime you can get hooked up with a farmer, even if he's selling to people all over the country, anytime you get hooked up from a farmer, you'll increase the farmer's yield, his profit, in other words, by buying from him directly. We buy from a rancher in southern Arizona. That's a long ways from Phoenix, believe me. But this guy has food delivery all over the state. And he has a website. You can order whatever he has offered every week, and it's very convenient for people to do that. But he's cut out the middleman. So yes, his prices are maybe probably a little bit more than anybody else. But here we have a local food source, and we support him because
Yeah. And I think that needs to happen across the board. I mean, people need to be supporting the independents, right? That's what needs to
yeah.
happen because they can't continue otherwise. It needs to be there needs to be support. And when you have that direct kind of a relationship where you don't have the middleman, then you also have a stronger sense of trust that Joel Salatin's not putting in, mRNA or this precision fermentation process into his food. So you have that as well. You're building the relationship. And I understand what you're saying with local, that, obviously we want to be able to scale beyond the local, but I do think locally there's people should support their local farmers. And if there can be even barter systems down the road, I do encourage people. I know the dollar is a fiat system, but pay them in cash, where it's complete, a direct kind of untraceable kind of a transaction, or if it's a remote kind of situation in one of these kind of privacy types of coins. But I think anything we can do to be where it's not being traced and tracked, I think is a step in the right direction. So.
When we know the model works, it's basically a revolution. I mean, it's essentially a revolution. It's just a modern day revolution. You can take the revolution and say, yeah, we're not doing that. We're not answering to, England. But ultimately, it's the same thing. We're not answering to the technocrats. You know what I mean? Essentially, it's a revolution, But the key is you have to be pretty savvy and sophisticated because they will shut it down if it gets any momentum. I mean, that's what we see with the social media, right? It's like, are things being censored? And it looks like probably they are.
I do want to add something. So this came out just while we were on here. So the Senate Agriculture Committee just released their expansion on this Clarity Act, and so I ran it through my my Technocracy bill analyzer, and here's the bottom line. So again, keep in mind, because we're talking about agriculture, this came out of the Senate Agriculture Committee, right? This is the bill. It's 160 something pages, which I'll read fully tonight. It gives the CFTC exclusive jurisdiction over all spot digital commodity markets, and it creates 4 new registration categories. Every broker, dealer, exchange, and custodian must register. Your assets can only be held by government-approved custodians. It's worse. It's worse than the thing that they just came up with. Some people have some idea. I saw somebody trying to pitch the idea. Well, it's going to take longer. That means they're going to deliberate. And it'll be a better bill. I'm like, I've not. Have you ever witnessed a situation where more deliberation led to more benefits to the American people? I haven't. And this just from this quick thumbnail sketch here, This is bad. So I'll analyze this and I'll give a report back later on what this
Yeah.
means from an agriculture perspective. I
Did I
mean,
not say it was gonna come through regulation?
it absolutely,
There we are.
100%. This is, wow.
Yep, there it is.
No.
I did wanna, address because Craig, you were talking about the, revolution. You know what the, the Revolutionary War, I mean, most people think that it was about the tea tax, right? The Boston Tea Party was essentially like a publicity stunt. I mean, they could have sustained the tax. That actually really wasn't the big deal. The big deal was that, England, the king no longer accepted the colonial notes. And so they didn't have independence, right? Because that currency. So this is it goes right to this conversation about having autonomy over the currency, so where it isn't tracked and traced and controlled and manipulated and programmed. But that was what started the Revolutionary War. Really, was because they wanted they wouldn't take the colonial notes. So yeah, we were put right back under the thumb of the king. All right. So the next question we have is that I've read that CRISPR is wildly exaggerated, and I have heard this too. So a lot of what they claim is that things can be modified, but actually, what I've heard is they can delete rather than insert. But that doesn't mean that they're not doing all sorts of really crazy genetic engineering, especially. So, the big difference in terms of CRISPR with humans, because I think that's really what this is addressing. I might be wrong. That I think those claims might be exaggerated. Not that doing gene deletion is a good thing either. I think any kind of tampering with genetics and, this is a complete violation of nature, of God, complete disrespect for humanity and for the natural order of things. That's my belief. But I think when we're talking about using CRISPR for something that is it's just a molecule, then they're creating it from scratch. So I think that I don't think that it's wildly overstated at that point.
CRISPR actually can insert as well as delete.
Can it? Okay. I've heard that
Absolutely.
it couldn't. Okay.
It can, and at this point, it's being used for all kinds of modifications on genomes in general. That includes taking genes from another species and putting them into a sequence of another species. This is very dangerous, obviously. The United Nations has a program right now where it's collecting all the DNA in the world. They're doing this on a nation by nation basis to make sure they have all the species of the world in one place. That's a public access database that all the scientists in the world can access to analyze all the DNA of all these species. And that gives him the building blocks, if you will, to create other life forms off of that database, if you will, to create synthetic DNA at this point. So it's very complex for sure, but it's being used increasingly on all sorts of projects, including trans-species modification. I don't like that at all.
I
Uh,
don't know. I don't like
yeah.
that at all. Well, I think they're also using it. I think we did talk about this a little bit last time, but they're collecting the genomic data to create like I I envision it like a Brave New World caste system where predicated on certain genetic
Well,
data, you
yes.
will be prioritized and others will be on a lower stratification.
Mhm. Yeah, you can see it's gonna happen someday, but hopefully not for a while.
Their
Yeah.
own little distorted Noah's Ark there, huh?
Yeah, exactly,
A
exactly.
little bit, yeah. So,
What
well,
else do we have?
we might have one other question.
Do it.
Yes. Okay. I'm getting that one. Okay. I think I have it. Um, no, I do not have it yet. Okay. It's okay. Has anyone seen Clonus Horror, 1979 movie? I have not.
What's that? What's the name again?
Clonus Horror. I'm guessing it's about cloning. Maybe. I have not seen it. I recently became aware of Metropolis, which predicted the AI distortions
Yeah.
of in 1926. I mean, of 2026, and that's the year we're in. But this is it. Okay. No, I'm not
Oh.
familiar with it at all.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I just queued it up here. I see it's available on YouTube. Actually, the full
O-
movie. It says,
Okay.
"Wow, okay."
It's probably public domain at this point. Yeah,
It
maybe.
could be. Yeah,
All right. Well,
we'll
we'll
have
check
to.
it
Well,
out.
thank you for the tip,
Yes.
listener.
Yes. All right.
Entertainment.
Oh, we have one more. One more. Let's see. Uh, has it come through yet? But I'll look for it. Okay, here it is. This is a question for Aaron Day. Do you have a tutorial on how to get started with Zeno for people that aren't that savvy with new systems?
I do. You can find it at freedomforge.io, but I'm in the process of enhancing it and making that an easier to walk through experience. I've done workshops in the past, and so this is part of the problem, is the challenge of onboarding people. But you can find kind of a walkthrough guide along with short videos that guide you through the process, and there will be more comprehensive materials coming in the next 30 days.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, I know these systems are definitely not. I think that there's a big learning curve. We'll put it that way for some people. At least for me, there is. So, yeah. So that's great. All right. Well, let's. Well, thank you to my knights, and I'll give everybody a chance. We'll go around and tell everybody where they can find each of you individually, and all the great work that you are doing. Let's start with you, Craig Winkle.
Yeah. Make sure I'm on here. Okay, good. On Rumble, on X, I think even on YouTube. Although I'm not sure because I get messages all the time that things have been chopped out of there. So who knows? Maybe sometime you can find it on YouTube, not. But you can find it just World HD, World of Harmonic Deconstruction. And so the concept is we use harmonics and markets. I'm a believer that, all the people on Earth, we're all connected in one form or another. You can turn that into, from a financial perspective, you can turn that into supply, demand, whatever you want to call it. But there are cycles that occur. And it's like plucking a string on an instrument that, as the waves go out, it's the same kind of a thing that happens. You throw a pebble in the water and you watch the waves ripple to the shoreline and come back and you get the reverberation off the shoreline. Same kind of thing happened in markets, right? We get action, reaction, we get a lot of things. And the harmonics are pretty good at calling things in a lot of different ways. And so that's what we do, is try to dissect markets and try to get an understanding of what's going on. Instead of taking the narrative, right, and just accepting it for an investment idea, what we do is try to use the harmonics and say, this is what can likely happen. And then we listen to the news and try to put that with the harmonic structure and say, okay, try to find the truth before the narrative gets to us, right? And that way when things are coming at us, we can throw things to the side and try to, find the real truth in it. So that's what we do.
Awesome. Aaron?
Great. You can find me at daylightfreedom.org and on X at Aaron R. Day. And again, I'm focused on trying to expose technocracy and help people build parallel solutions. But you will be seeing me write extensively, and I'll probably be up really late tonight reading this new bill, because as we've discussed here tonight, agriculture is the key. The food supply is the key to technocracy, and tokenization is the gateway to centralizing control of the food supply. And this bill that I'm going to be talking about tonight is it. This is how they control everything. This is how they control the money. This is how they control all of our assets and how they control food. So I encourage people, be on the lookout for this big monster article that I'm putting out, but take this seriously and learn about it, because it will profoundly impact your freedom.
Absolutely. And Patrick?
As we say, it's your stomach. it's, it's your dinner plate. Technocracy.news, that's where you find me. And I don't have anything. Well, actually, our books are on Amazon as well. There's an audiobook for our new book, and the Kindle version is there. That paperback is there. And if you want to buy multiple books, get them definitely on technocracy.news. I have a discount schedule. It goes down, I think, to 45 for 50% at $10. So please do that. And let me say bon appetit.
Yes. And thank you all so much. Thank you for watching and listening. I am Courtney Turner. I'm the host of the Courtney Turner Podcast. You can find me at CourtneyTurner.com. I do spell my name a little bit differently. It's spelled like Courtenay. It's pronounced Courtney, but you won't find me unless you spell it that way. So COURTENAY, TURNER for those who are listening, not watching. And you can also find my Substack. And I will be getting back to writing. We've had to take a little break. We are going to be launching our Tallow next month. We have to create a business to fund the business, that's how these things go these days. So if you want to support the work I am doing, though, yeah, definitely become a member of my Substack. That's CourtneyTurner.substack.com. And that is where you will get all of the podcasts early access and ad-free because I don't have control over the ads on the other platform. So I will be starting. I have several articles in the queue, and many more will be coming soon. And of course, get our book and The Final Betrayal, which you can find on Patrick's site on Amazon, and also the books.buy/Patrick Wood is a great option, especially for those who are outside of the United States to avoid some of those exorbitant shipping fees that we're now experiencing. So thank you all for watching, listening, and the next one will be February 25th. I don't think we have a topic yet, but we'll converse and get that out.
You bet.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Knights assemble! They're coming! Fire! Play! Rockefeller poison soil gates, grabs the land. WEF screams, he bugs, laps fall from their hand. Farm seizures rising, robots in the field. Exile from the soil, but we won't yield. Technocracies, we're on food. Fake meat, farm seizures controlling you.